everyone, thanks for joining us with the Midwest Arts Council. Today we are doing the second lesson or second class for the brush calligraphy. This is brought to you by the Safe at Home Manitoba program, and so we're just going to dive right in. So for today's class, we are going to learn how to do uppercase letters. We are also going to go over which tools and material we're going to need, as well as a review on how to hold the brush pen. So first, we are going to just use these brush pens. There's lots of different colors that are out there, but it doesn't really matter which color we're going to use today. We are going to use this brush tip side. We are also going to need some sort of paper. Again, it can be lined diagonal paper, it can be plain paper or loose leaf or whatever paper you have hanging around, as long as the ink from the marker doesn't bleed. The other thing that we're going to need is some sort of smooth surface to work on so the pen doesn't jump while we write. So going into how to hold the brush pen, we don't hold it low down like you would a normal pen. We kind of hold it an inch or so up higher. The very tip of your brush pen is what you use for what we call upstrokes or thin lines. So we very gently use that tip to bring your marker kind of those upwards motions. And then you would use kind of the side of the brush for your more down motions. So we would use the different parts. There's the tip, and then pressing a little bit on the side using the side of the brush pen to get the different thickness, the thin upstrokes and the thicker downstrokes. If you have to go back to the first class to practice those up and down strokes or the thinner and thicker strokes, that is absolutely okay. One thing about brush calligraphy is it does take a lot of practice, sometimes weeks and weeks and months of practice, but it is worth the effort and it is quite fun once you get the hang of it. So moving right into the letters, the first letter that we are going to work on is the letter A. For lettering, there are so many different ways you can do each letter, but we're going to go over one or two different styles of each letter that I have learned to be kind of a favorite. So the first letter is an A. Now you can make it kind of like that lowercase a, where you kind of just make a bigger version of it. So there are many different ways of doing it. So there's a giant uppercase A, very similar to that lowercase a. But one of my favorite styles is a little bit trickier. What we would do is we would add kind of a squiggle, and then we would go down on this diagonal and then lift up, and then almost like you're making an H. But then you would, instead of make that second line, you would just make it into an A. So it's kind of a fancier uppercase A, very similar to a printed A. So again, to do that, you would go down and around, and then one more downstroke. For a B, I would make a diagonal downstroke. And then just like you would a printing bee, you would kind of do that smaller downstroke. There's tiny little upstrokes in here that do get really thin, that downstroke, and then finish it off with a little loop. For a C, you could just do a large uppercase C like you would the printing C, but I like to make it a little fancy and add a little loop. And so it's just a little bit fancier of an uppercase letter. For a D, you would do your diagonal down line, and then instead of two bumps like the B, we're gonna just do one big downstroke, and then a little loop at the end. The E is kind of like a backwards 3 almost. So I like to start it almost with this little tail that the A has. So it's kind of a thin sideways stroke, and then you loop around. Right at this middle line, we would make the middle of the E. And then this, again, isn't really following the rules of these diagonal lines, but I like to make my bottom part of the E a little bit wider, and then the upstroke to finish it off. An F, I have not found a good way to make an F. I think the cursive way of making an F would be kind of, again, that little starting tail horizontally, and then you would bring it around and make a downstroke, and then kind of crossing that to make it an uppercase F. I guess you could do it if you wanted more like a printing F. However you would like to do it. I don't love it either. So it's a harder letter that might take some practice to find a version that you like. For a G, this is a little trickier. You could, again, just do a giant uppercase G, but the way I like to do it is have kind of like this C, and making a big uppercase C, and then instead of stopping, I would add the little Y loop, and to make it a big uppercase G. For an H, we would do that horizontal loop again, kind of like the A. You would continue going around and then just straight across, and then you would do your downstroke. So instead of the A downstroke being on an angle, this downstroke is just straight along that diagonal line. And I, again, you could do this however you wanted. The cursive way of doing it is kind of like that. A J, a little bit of a trickier letter to do. So starting down at the bottom, you would go all the way up, thin upstroke, and then you would do a long downstroke and then finish it off like you would a Y. A K, so I would do that diagonal upstroke again, a downstroke. I like to give this one a little bit of a curve, kind of like the I, and then you could just follow this diagonal, but I like to give it a bit of a peak here, and then that loop to make the K. An L, probably one of my favorite uppercase letters, that downs kind of almost like a downstroke, and then the loop that follows the diagonal, and then another kind of downstroke loop. An M, there's many ways of doing uppercase M's. I like to make my uppercase letters a little loopier. I do prefer to do lowercase lettering most often, but sometimes we need uppercase letters. So we're gonna go down and around, and then down, and then I like to make my second loop a little bit lower, but however you like to do it. So I might do that one again. So you would go down and around, it's a little nicer. You can do something like this, whichever style you prefer, and whatever's easier for you. Same with ends. You can do something like this for an uppercase N. Another way of doing the N would be making a little kind of curve and going up, looping down, and then going back up. So it's a little loopier, whichever style you prefer. Again, the other one was just like a bigger version of the lowercase n. The next letter is an O. It's a very pretty letter. I start kind of at this halfway mark, go up, around, and up. The P, I would make a downstroke, and then I like to, instead of going back up and around, which you can do, I guess we could do that one as well. I like to make it kind of like that. If you were to do it the other way, it would be going down and around, whichever you prefer. A Q, there's a couple different ways of doing this. So you can do it kind of with that horizontal kind of sideways stroke, a downstroke, and then that upstroke. and then with a little tail, or you can do it kind of with like the O with a little tail. So it would be a little bit of a bigger loop down and around with a Q, or you could do the traditional cursive way of doing a Q, but I struggle with that one. An R, so we would do our downstroke, and then kind of like that B, we would do your kind of softer upstroke and then heavier downstroke. You can make a loop of this, or you can just meet it and finish your R. And S, I make my uppercase S's just like I would do a small lowercase s. So this would be just dragging it out a little bit more. Some people will also just do like this type of S, whichever you prefer. A T, you can, I like to make that kind of tail again. And then, yeah, it's not the prettiest letter, but it is what it is. You can make it loopier if you wanted, so you can make it, yeah, whichever you prefer. So I ended up missing the letter U, so we're gonna add this one in. So to start, it has a bit of a curve at the top, and then we are going to go downwards with the downstroke. And kind of a continuous motion going up. And then I like to finish it with another downstroke, kind of like an upside down N. V, very, I guess, similar to a lot of these letters that we've been doing, but I like to add a little something at the beginning, and then you can curve it inwards or outwards, whatever you prefer. I'm going to curve this one inwards. A W is just extending this. So I'll maybe do the W on the next line. So the downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, an X, big version of the little one, just without the intro upstroke. So I would just do another kind of curve, a downstroke, and then I guess I kind of extended this a little bit, but an upstroke. The Y, I like to kind of make this loop. I bring the downstroke all the way down and then go up, and then we're going to finish it with that kind of P or J tail. And then the uppercase Z, there are so many ways of doing this. Not many instances you would use it, but I would just do the big version of the lowercase letter. You could do more like a printing Z, but it's whichever style you would like. So with each of these letters, practice until you find a style or a version that you like. It takes time to get the hang of the up and down stroke, so practice a letter over and over. You can always use something like the practice sheet, and then you can put a piece of paper on top of it, and it's sort of hard to see, but you can kind of see, if I had this the right way, you can kind of see the letters behind, and you can practice your lettering by tracing what's behind. That's a little hard to see, but they are sort of visible, especially if I lift them up, you can see the lettering behind. So for today's project, we are going to be making a quote with a little circle around it. So this one says, "The earth without art is just A." There's lots of different versions we can do. This was done with a paintbrush. And then this one was done with brush markers. There's also "Live Simply" on the back side. So whichever you want. And it's just a little fun project that you can make into a card, or you can just frame it, or you can do whatever you want with it. So that's what we're gonna try doing today. So the supplies you're gonna need for this little project is a piece of paper. It could be watercolor paper, whichever paper you want. Something circular like a bowl, or something we can trace to make a circle. And then of course your brush pens. So the first step that we are going to do is take actually the thin side of your dual brush and we're going to outline your circle shape to make a circle. You could also do this in pencil if you didn't want to go all the way around. So for instance, this one here, I didn't go all the way around. I just went a little bit on each side. But the one that I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a full circle. So you can trace that and then set your circle aside, and then we are ready to decorate and add a quote of some sort. So the quote that I will do today is going to be "Make someone smile every day." Now, if you're not sure about freehanding the brush lettering, what you can do is take one of the line sheets or any line sheet of paper and put it behind, and you should be able to sort of see the lines through the paper. So we are going to start with the word make. I'm not going to press super hard because I don't want my words to be too big because this is kind of a small circle. So we are going to use our uppercase lettering, and so we're going to make a capital M. And then your lowercase letters that we practiced from last class. And then an uppercase S. And transition it to that lowercase letter. You could change colors of markers if you have between these, if you would like. Or you could add some printing in there. You could put smile as printing, but I am just going to keep going. Little heart. And then we're going to do an uppercase E. Y. You can hear kids outside. There's a big snow hill outside and they're playing on tobogganing down the hill. So just ignore if you hear any kids screaming. So you can choose whichever quote you want to do, but once you're done, you can decorate. So my way of decorating is just adding almost like little leaves all the way around. Again, you could do it in a different color. Maybe I will choose a slightly different blue, mix it up a tiny bit. Maybe this really light blue is kind of pretty. It doesn't really matter, but what I kind of do, or the motion that I do, is kind of make just, it's almost like a little upstroke and then a downstroke, like quotation marks or something like that, or apostrophes, but I'm just combining them to make, I don't know, a leaf shape. So I'm gonna kind of make them going upwards. It's almost like half a heart. And then I would do the other side. And then I'm going to rotate it a little bit and keep going. You can switch colors halfway through. You can kind of do whatever you'd like. I find it easier to do one side at a time. You could also stagger the leaves so you could kind of do one side and then the other, however you like it. I like both sides. Might do half of a leaf there. kind of getting crowded there. So that's our project for today. You can do any type of quote you would like. It doesn't have to say make someone smile every day, but something that brings you joy. So the next class we will be focusing on symbols and numbers with another little project at the end. The next class is just different lettering techniques, like making things pop a little bit more or making it 3D, or just kind of really focusing on the definition between the up and down strokes. And there will be another little project with that one as well. We'll also maybe talk about different types of brush lettering and a few different options that you can try if you want. So that's the end of today's class. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you hopefully in the next class. Thanks.